Welcome to another Triple One's Wargaming podcast. This is episode 7. I'm your host, Jasper Axelson, and I'm joined with my other host,
Zakk Wallace.
And today we're going to be taking a look at the primary objective missions in the 9th edition chapter-approved variants of the game. So in this podcast, we just hope to kind of deep dive right into the how to score primary and how to kind of build it into your list and go from there. Yeah, so we're going to start with just defining what primary is. So generally, at the end of each player's command phase, the player whose turn it is scores 4 victory points for each of the following conditions they satisfy, for a maximum of 12 victory points. They control 1 or more objective markers. They control 2 or more objective markers. They control more objective markers than their opponent controls. The primary objective cannot be scored in the first battle round. In the 5th battle round, the player who has the second turn does not score any victory points at the end of the command phase. Instead, at the end of their turn, they score 4 victory points for each of the above conditions they satisfy, for a maximum of 12 victory points. So that is the definition for the take and hold variant.
Yeah, and then so there's take and hold, and then there is domination. Now, domination works exactly the same, except instead of holding 1 and holding 2, then holding more for 4, 8, and 12 points respectively, you have to hold 2, hold 3, and hold more for 4, 8, 12.
So yeah, big difference here.
It doesn't sound like it, but it's a big difference.
Yeah, when you play it and you only hold the 2 on the domination, you go, oh, that's only 4 points. Yikes. Yeah. It seems like 9th edition, throughout the entire edition, for matched play and kind of competitive play, it's done this command phase, hold it at the start of your turn for scoring primary.
Yeah.
It seems like that trend's going to continue for the rest of 9th. So,
I'd say so.
Even though the points have changed here and there, like the amount that you get, it kind of seems this is the general way that you score the primary. So figured it'd be a great way to just kind of learn how to build this into your list.
Yeah.
It's very important.
Not sure how much we're going to go into like the tertiary, which goes into your 45 points for primary, potential 45. But I think it's big just to mention at the start that does shore up this difference, like in a lot of ways. Like, say your opponent is really good at holding primary objectives, and you're not so much. You can still do some of the actions and other things to kind of level the playing field, so to speak.
Yeah, and what we mean by tertiary is each specific mission in the chapter-approved book has its own set of, hey, this is like a little side mission you can do to also score points. And typically it's like 2 to 3 points a turn that you can score, and like Zakk said, you can really make up maybe the loss of primary with this tertiary, as we call it, tertiary mission.
Oh, yeah. I'd even be interested, after we get some more practice into the new missions, doing an episode entirely on like tertiaries for each mission.
Yeah, because that's big. I've had a couple games now where my tertiary has equaled 2 turns of primary. Like 2 turns of holding 2 for 8 points.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's pretty easy to get, in some of the missions, pretty easy to get 20 points just for the tertiary.
Right? And even just getting 8 points, that's big.
That's an extra turn to hold one.
Right? And so I wouldn't mind doing a whole episode on that sometime in the future.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we'll keep that in mind.
Yeah. This one will focus specifically on primary objectives.
Yes. So, getting into the primary objectives. So, yeah, as we said, or as we just laid out, you score it from turns 2 to 5. And so, in doing this, we generally like to build this into the lists building stage. So, we like to, when we're writing our lists, have certain units that we know are going to be for this primary objective playing. So, it's going to be, like, generally, in each mission, you have one objective in your home field. So, it's in your deployment zone, or it's right there next to it. But generally, there's one inside of it. Yeah. And I like to have a couple units, 1 to 2, that are designed to stay on that home field objective marker basically the whole game.
Yeah.
A lot of times, this can be a super cheap unit, or it can be more of a durable unit. You had a great point with what you like to have in your home field objective.
Oh, yeah. Back when I was running in 8th edition, back when I was running Harlequins and Drakari, I would tech in the Drakari Spearhead with the triple Ravager and an Archon. And I would treat these as kind of my backfield holders. They'd zone out the backfield a bit. A Ravager is pretty long. A few Ravagers in a row zones out a big portion of the backfield. And they're also able to hold objectives and kind of control my area of the board, while also being able to reach out and touch opponents' units. You could have a cheap backfield holder, or if you spend a little bit more points, you can have something more durable that can still interact with the game while holding the backfield. It's kind of the give and take in deciding what your list is good at. But
yeah, and sometimes, having, that unit of Kabalite warriors that if you don't need your tank on the backfield objective, say your opponent has no way to reach out and touch anything near it. Let's say it's a slow, durable army like Death Guard without, artillery. You don't really need anything super expensive on your backfield objective because nothing's coming out to touch it, so you could just leave something cheap. But it is nice to have, like you said, that unit that not only holds the objective and is durable, but also can do another function for your army and shoot.
Yeah. Which is nice, not always necessary, like you said.
Yeah, but yeah, very nice. Anytime you can get multiple uses out of a unit, you want to be looking at that.
And that's kind of like building in different tech pieces and whatnot. Like if you have that durable ranged unit, like having one of those and you have some cheap units, utility units in your army, you can decide when you roll up to the table what their mission is going to be for this game.
Right.
Like you don't have to have that backfield long range damage dealer holding objectives if it's not conducive to winning your specific matchup.
Right. And a lot of times I like to look at it like, can my opponent easily either shoot me off my backfield objective with artillery or any other kind of modes of shooting, or can they easily, some enemies are super fast. Can they come up and touch my backfield objective? If yes, then I try to have that more durable thing that's on there.
Yeah.
If they can't, which a lot of Marines and Death Guard, which not Marines anymore, trade the Emperor, but no, they can't. So you can afford to have a cheap little unit on there.
Yeah.
And speaking of Death Guard, another thing too, I like personally, I play a lot of Eldar. I like having a durable indirect artillery piece on my backfield objective because now it easily satisfies both. It sits on there and it shoots.
Oh yeah, and you can keep it hidden.
Yeah, and on top of that, keep it hidden.
Even before Hiveguard got crazy good with the White Dwarf and all the ridiculous buffs they got from the Leviathan supplement. Even then, they were still really good as just backfield holders that could shoot without being shot at.
Absolutely.
And even what are they? Medusa, the guard tanks. Yeah,
Medusa is one. Full payload Manticores.
Manticores is the one I'm thinking of. Manticores, yeah, where they can just chill back and do some damage for all 5 turns.
Right.
Without exposing themselves.
Exactly. So yeah, you want to have something that you're putting into your list and you're thoughtfully putting it in there that this will be on my home field, backfield objective. It's taking up this part of the board. It's going to stay here and hopefully the entire game it will just be here.
Yeah. And most of the time if you can't hold your own home objective, you've kind of lost the game.
Yeah, you're in a big pickle.
Big pickle. Unless you have some weird game plan where you're holding everything else.
Yeah, you're I'm abandoning my own and just making it harder for myself, but also stunting on my opponent by just taking everything.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of shooting yourself in the foot. You have a gimme objective. You want to be build in a way to hold it.
Yeah, take your points, as they say. Mm-hmm. Take the easy stuff. And building on that, it's important in the list building phase to build units that are going for the midboard. Mm-hmm. And in the midboard, there's typically another objective, at least one that's also in your own territory. So by territory, I mean you're half of the board. So from the exact halfway of the board to your side. You got another one that's in that area, maybe a little bit outside your deployment, but still there. And then we also have the other ones that are in your opponent's midboard. Mm-hmm. So you want to have stuff that can go up and secure your midboard and then also kind of harass your opponents.
Yeah.
Units I kind of like to do kind of set up shop on my territory half. So I like to move out of the deployment zone and kind of set up shop on that other one in my territory. And I try to do that as soon as possible because it's important to start getting those primaries right away.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you start falling behind on primaries, that's a very easy way to just lose the game.
Yeah. We were kind of talking about, like, the whole, you have to be at least kind of matching your opponent's primary. Mm-hmm. Whether you're both scoring low or you're both scoring higher.
Yeah. Yeah, if you find yourself losing the primary game hard, I don't know of too many games where I've won that I've heavily lost the primary and still won.
Yeah, secondaries usually just, they're not enough by themselves to carry you to victory, especially if your opponent is scoring high on primary. If they score just decent on their secondaries,
yeah, it's kind of over for you.
Yeah, you have to be focused on primary. It's half of the way you win.
Mm-hmm. And typically these objectives in your midboard are roughly 6 inches away. As far as like the zone that, they might be 9 inches away, but the 3-inch bubble grants you, they're 6 inches away.
Yeah.
So you can generally get some kind of thing over there. Now, the biggest thing for that is playing with your terrain. Terrain is the most important thing here. So seeing, okay, where can I hide my unit within a range of this objective in the midboard that it's not really it's being shot by the least amount of things.
Yeah.
Because, you can have the most durable thing in the game, but if you're being shot by an entire 2,000-point army, you're probably not going to live.
Few things do.
Yeah, very few things do. I know one good kind of easy parlor trick almost is having putting a transport on that objective, letting your opponent shoot it off, and then pinataing onto it.
Oh, yeah.
I've had that happen many of times. It's actually very powerful because your opponent might not think of that while it's happening. While they're shooting at that transport.
Oh, I love pinata transports.
Yeah, it's strong. Going into what were we going to say?
Oh, I was just going to mention, because it forces, I'm all about forcing bad choices.
Yes.
That's my favorite thing. I love giving your opponent a bunch of bad choices. No matter what they choose, something isn't ideal. And one of those, like you said with the pinata transports, by putting that pinata transport on an objective, it forces your opponent to decide, okay, do I want to kill the transport to get to the juicy stuff inside and risk them holding it anyway with the unit inside, or do I just want to tow into that objective in order to flip it reliably, but then they get to counterattack you with whatever's inside the next turn. Mm-hmm. It forces that bad decision of, okay, harder to control, but I take away some of the power, or guaranteed to control it, but then it's just accepting a bit of a counterstrike, and that they're not losing any of their own stuff.
And this is very effective when you're going into your opponent's territory. Mm-hmm. More so, even more so than your own, because you're really forcing the action. Now you're like, what are you going to do about this transport that's right in your grill? Mm-hmm. I like that a lot. It's because the more decisions your opponent has to make, the more likely they are to mess up.
Yeah.
And choose the wrong one. Then you get to capitalize on it.
That's the way I like to do it.
It's very fun. That kind of blue magic control style.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So going into archetypes of armies, certain armies play differently. Like, we know Death Guard, as we were saying earlier. Death Guard, Custodes. Armies like that are slow, they're durable.
Thick City,
with Dark Eldar. A bunch of wraiths for Eldar.
Especially coming up with that new book.
Yeah, just a bunch of wraiths. Yeah, that's slow. It's really durable.
Hard to chew through.
Yes, and then there's fast and sneaky. So GSC, bunch of aspect warriors, Drukhari, what would you call witch cults? I don't know.
Witch cults, yeah. Some of the Cabal stuff.
Yeah.
Harlequins are very fast and sneaky kind of a play style.
Definition of fast and sneaky.
Yeah. GSC, I don't know if you said.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's GSC. A big one.
I said sneak and I thought GSC.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are the definition of that. So knowing kind of what your army, it's a spectrum.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We're kind of talking, it's hard to break it down into a bunch of different categories, but it's more, like a spectrum where slow and durable is on one end, fast and sneaky is on the other.
Yeah.
And kind of being able to tell which one you have, because they both play incredibly differently, but even Tyranids could be fast and sneaky with a lot of durable aspects.
Right. Yeah, you play a combination of it.
Mm-hmm. So it's all on that spectrum we were talking about. Do you want to kind of go into a little more in depth on how do you recommend someone with a slow and durable army plays the primary?
Yeah, so typically, everything depends, but typically a slow and durable army, you want to kind of brute force your way onto the primary, and your plan is to move forward and just take.
Yep.
You're just trying to outscore your opponent heavily on primary by just moving forward and saying, I'm more durable, this is my objective, you're not killing me.
Big one, too, is even after the Death Guard nerfs, Dark Angel Terminator spam.
Yes, yep, yeah. Deathwing. Deathwing is tough to deal with. When there's 40 Deathwing Terminators just moving and advancing up the board, all on objectives, man, it's tough to shift 10 Deathwing Terminators on an objective.
I've seen a lot of people put 2 10-man Terminators right in the center objective, especially on a 5-objective mission.
Yeah.
How do you chew through 20 Deathwing Terminators?
Right? It's yep, they're getting that primary score.
Yep, and they're all OBSEC.
Yep. So those armies are really just kind of betting on, we're going to be more durable than you and just outscore you on primary. They're really trying to shift that, what we were talking about earlier, where it's bad to get low primary scores. They're trying to just put you as low as they can and just raise them up. How would you say fast and sneaky armies play?
Oh, so we were kind of talking about rather than bullying something off of the center area, just holding your zone down like the durable ones. Fast and sneaky can focus a little less on holding primary objectives and is more about denying your opponent's primary. Things like Eldar, Harlequins, even GSC can lean into this heavily. Because you don't necessarily need to score the highest on primary if you can guarantee that your opponent is scoring low on it.
Right.
It's kind of holding more by proxy almost.
These type of armies, you can score up to 45 primary, but they're not trying to score that 45. They're just trying to match you and beat you on secondaries because they know Eldar knows they're not going to bully Death Guard off of an objective. They're not going to go out in there and just wipe a Death Guard army off an objective in one turn.
Yeah.
So they're going to try and do it in other ways by denying you, primarily by movement, by shooting what they need to, and then moving on there and stealing it that way.
Yeah, it's all about the flipping and denial game.
Yes, it's a lot more finesse. This play style.
A little less brute force. I often find with this play style, holding the center of the board is often a mistake.
Yes.
I mean, if it's a 5 objective mission and you're going for Stranglehold, throwing cheap throwaway units in the middle, but not actively trying to just hold the middle consistently, you kind of want to work on the outskirts, kind of hang on the edges of the board.
Yeah, almost like flowing like water, around like holding the rest of the board, basically.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, when you're playing these type of armies and you throw that unit on the center, you need to just mentally prepare that thing's dead.
Yeah.
When I throw my 5 Dire Avengers on that objective to flip it for that turn to deny my primary, or my opponent's primary, I need to mentally know, they're not going to live, so I need to have some other plan of scoring my, hopefully, hold 1, hold 2.
Yeah.
For those 8 points. Typically, I think for whether you're playing slow and durable or fast and sneaky, I think it's vital that you get at least 8 primary points, so holding 2 or holding 3 on the domination type missions.
Yeah, I agree. It's vital to get that 8 points.
Yeah, because typically if you're not getting that 8 points, if you're getting that 4 points, that means your opponent is probably looking at that hold more, which is not good. So to do that, it's really about trying to see what, you don't need to hold all the objectives, right? There's 5 objectives or 6 objectives. I mean, if you're holding all of those, you've already won the game. What is there even to think about at this point,
Yeah, and it's kind of a bit of a trap. I see people a lot of times, they'll spread themselves way too thin. You kind of have to decide, okay, I need to hold 2 for 8. If I'm holding 2, Is it worth it to go for hold more or to drop your opponent down to hold 1 in order to spread yourself so thin that then they can counterattack and it's hard to support any of your other units? You're too far away, unless you're Eldar in some cases, you're too far away to then backtrack and help kind of lend support to an objective. So to go into your big thing is the triangle.
The triangle.
Give them a little rundown of the triangle.
I'll give you a little bit of the triangle.
That's kind of part of this.
Yeah, so I just kind of like, so when you look at all the objectives and all the maps, and this is kind of universal for this mission pack, the previous one, etc. Typically, you can find, like, you can make a triangle of 3 objectives, including your home field one, and make a triangle from the closest ones from that. It's typically fairly small in space, and you want to just control that triangle. You want to put most of your resources in that, and just focus everything on that, and not really worry about what's outside of that triangle. Because typically that triangle is 3 objectives, and if it's a 5 objective mission, that's the majority of them. And if you're able to control that throughout the game, you've won.
And even like in a 5 objective, holding the back 2 and just flipping that middle. Flipping that middle keeps them from holding more.
Yep.
You're probably going for stranglehold in a 5 objective.
Yeah, typically, yeah.
Yeah. Even on like a 6 objective mission, you kind of pick your 3 and just hold those 3. If you can hold those 3, your opponent will never be getting hold more.
Right. And that's what you want. Even if you're playing a slow and durable and you're trying to outmuscle on primary, you still need to at least hold the bare minimum. Like, you still can't let your opponent beat you on primary.
Yeah.
So getting those 3 objectives is paramount.
And usually I'll try for 1 turn of the game, I'll try to either knock my opponent down to hold 1, or hold 2, or hold none, ideally.
Yeah.
Or I'll try and go for the hold more. Typically, I wait until turns 4 or 5 to make that play. Because once you make that play, you're starting to spread a bit thin. I don't like doing that in early game because it kind of throws out your whole force. But turns 4 or 5, if you can just get 1 turn of hold more, or knocking their primary down, it's huge. Because if you've matched them for the rest of the game, you win alone on that as long as your secondaries aren't weak.
Yeah, as long as that plan works, it works phenomenal. I've seen it multiple times.
Yeah, you don't have to win by crushing your opponent from the get-go. If you can just keep it real tight until the last couple turns, you don't have to win by much as long as you end with more points.
1 point is the same victory as 100 points.
Yep.
Like, the same thing.
Yeah, and then that even ties into like your philosophy of doing as little as possible for the maximum reward.
If I can just sit and not move a single model but win, I will do that. I will just sit there and just rack my points up. And so I like what you're saying about waiting until turns 4 or 5 to make that play on primary. I think the reason that works so well is because if you do that too early in the game and it works, let's say it works, and you get your opponent down to hold 1 and you get hold more 1 time. Typically, there's enough game left over for your opponent to now systematically kind of just erase the rest of your army because they have the rest of the game to play. You still have 3 turns of the game to go. And by doing this like overextending play so early, your opponent now can kind of examine the board and say, okay, he's overextended. How do I erase his units that now don't have the support they normally would have on his side of the board?
Yeah, I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, it's very big. And this can kind of tie into as well like play style, like how you play. Like Zakk and I are both more reactive players.
Oh yeah.
We like to do the sit and wait game where we just sit, now we go.
Kind of let them come to you, let some things play out, wait for the perfect moment, and then strike.
Yep, just be patient. We're the patient hunter.
The patient hunter. Little Tao, yeah.
Yeah, yuck.
Oh, yeah.
I hate that I
Cow
said that.
Yan, baby.
It is, though. It is Cow Yan.
It is a little bit,
It's very much Cow Yan.
Waiting, kind of baiting in your opponent to make a move, and then capitalizing on their mistakes or any weak points they may have left.
Very much we're both very much reactive. Like, we like to see what you've done and go, okay, where did you make a mistake? Because Warhammer it's so hard to play correctly. that your opponent's going to make a mistake, and let's just see where they did it.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Yeah, everybody makes mistakes during a game. My favorite part is when you see something small that you can then capitalize on.
And this lends very, very much to the fast and sneaky style because we're fast, because we're sneaky maybe with GSC, we're able to see that on the other side of the board, like, oh, he left only one unit on this objective, I'm going to go take that now. Mm-hmm. Whereas, the slow and durable armies, even if they see that mistake, they can't necessarily capitalize on it as much. Mm-hmm. So they, in my opinion, sometimes need to play more aggro, like aggressive. Yeah. And I think the best way to play aggressive is to just threat saturate. Mm-hmm. You want to kind of go over threat saturation, maybe a little double demon?
Yeah, so threat saturation is one of my favorite strategies in the game. I like having a bunch of big scary things that you can't ignore. Like in my list running 2 Demas, Swarm Lord. Like, it's a fairly typical double Dema list.
Yeah.
Even lately I've been doing Crusher Stampede with double Demas.
Yeah.
Quite good. But just like... So turn 1, I throw a Dema in your face, and I get units onto a couple objectives, pushing up the midfield a bit. And it forces you to, okay, either I deal with the Dema that's in my face, or I focus on the units that are holding objectives. And no matter which choice they make, it's a bad choice. No matter what they try and mitigate, my other thing is still either scoring me points, or he's leaving a Dema alone in his backfield, which is never good.
Yes.
With threat saturation, it's no matter what they kill, you still have several other things coming at them. And it even makes it harder to kind of focus things down, because you're worried about so many things, and it can kind of... You get overloaded on the threats, and oftentimes people make the wrong call on what they should eliminate.
And it's super vital with threat saturation, in my opinion, to have some sort of unit that's not on the objective, not scoring you points, but just scaring your opponent with what it can kill.
Yep.
Which is, the Dema is like the perfect archetype of that. Mm-hmm.
It's in your face. You gotta deal with it.
You have to.
It's not holding any objectives, maybe.
It's not scoring points, maybe.
But if you don't kill it, it's gonna really hurt next turn, too.
Yeah, it's gonna pick up whatever it wants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like that playstyle.
Yeah, it's quite fun. But another thing, too, is we read it when we defined what the primary is, but it's the second turn. And how the second turn scores a little bit differently than the first turn for primary. Mm-hmm. And that is in the last round of the game. Instead of scoring it at the top of their turn, like normal, the player who goes second scores it at the end of the game.
Huge.
Oh, it's huge.
Huge.
The second turn advantage, it is huge. I would 9 out of 10 times rather have second turn than first turn.
Yeah. I think part of that stems from a reactionary playstyle.
Very much so, yeah. Very much so.
Or reactive.
Reactive, yeah.
Reactive.
Reactive. Radioactive. Mm-hmm. But it's big because if your opponent plays it right, they usually have a 12 in the bag at the end of the game because it's the end of the game. They can just afford to overextend and go on as many objectives as they can because they know there's not another turn of the game to play. Mm-hmm.
If you're able to just kind of plan for that late game and save a couple quick units, that your last turn they can reach out and touch a couple objectives. An almost guaranteed 12 on your last turn primary is huge.
It's very big, and that lends itself to the Kaoyun style of just patiently waiting. Mm-hmm. And knowing this, if you're going first, you have to realize this and kind of plan accordingly. Like, okay, your opponent might have this guaranteed 12. I do need to make a play to knock them down some, so we at least tie on primary. Yeah,
and that's nowadays, currently in 9th, a lot of the time, if you get first turn, you can't usually, get a line, draw a bead on anything super important. The way terrain is typically set up with 9th edition, you can't really see much turn 1, so you gotta kind of use that to get your board control ready.
Yep.
Or I like to use it we'll use it as a second deployment step.
Yeah, like an extension of the deployment phase.
Yeah, where you're kind of setting up a little more board control, but you don't get that first strike. Second player to go not only gets that bottom of turn 12 or bottom of game 12 points, but they get the first pounce.
Yeah, they get to see what you committed onto the board.
Yep, whatever you kind of did with your first turn, they get to react to it, and they get the first strike. You get the first step into board control, but turn 2 gets the first strike to kill shit.
Yep. And so knowing that is also big because of that, you kind of... I think because your opponent gets the first strike, they get the last turn advantage for primary. I think it's super important that you kind of have, in your list, you have enough units to go onto a second objective and withhold any kind of firepower, any kind of damage your opponent can do, so you get that at least that hold 2.
Yeah.
And a big thing with that is terrain. Like Zach was saying, if you're playing with the kind of terrain where the player goes first, just leaf blowers your opponent, unless they have mass, indirect, or some silly shenanigans, shouldn't really be happening with 9th edition terrain.
Yeah.
Like, 9th edition terrain should be... First player's really not shooting much.
Yeah.
If your opponent deployed correctly. If you deployed on the open, you get what you deserve.
Exactly. You should be able to deploy most of your army in cover. I know even with a lot of tournaments going to player placed, you have a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for?
Obscuring?
You do get more like obscuring terrain. Let's keep going, I'll think of it.
Word.
But,
Agency?
Yes, yes, there we go. Oh.
Yeah, let's go.
Yes, you have more agency.
And like setting up a hiding spot?
Yeah. You can really decide, okay, I need to make sure these units are safe for turn 1. You can set up your terrain to guarantee that you can at least keep the important things safe. I kind of like the player placed, but even the GW terrain, like the recommended maps that they put out a little while back, those maps are set up in such a way that you can hide your entire army turn 1. Like, if you don't get first turn, they shouldn't be able to shoot at anything you don't want them to.
Correct. Yeah.
It's quite big.
It's very big. And, yeah, I mean, this is big.
Yeah, I personally really like second turn. I know a lot of people still prefer first turn.
Yeah.
There's some lists and playstyles that do lean into first turn. Even like double Dema, as the Demas can't benefit from obscuring.
And, a lot of times it's fun just to go first and just get your models moving, too.
Right.
Like, there's that, like, little monkey brain party where you just want to move forward and just start shooting before anybody else.
But, yeah, I personally do prefer second turn. I can't recall the last game I played where I really wanted first.
It's very rare.
It's been a minute, yeah.
It's very rare.
That end-to-turn scoring, man.
It's big. I think that's the biggest part of the second turn is forget like the benefit of like knowing where your opponent goes first turn, you can pounce on them, but just that like late game, I know if I play it right, if I have enough models, I can get 12 on primary.
Yep.
Like, that has won me so many close games.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Especially with Eldar and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Like any army that's sneaky and fast just benefits even more from second turn.
Oh, yeah, because you don't have to worry about getting shot off.
No, exactly. You get to just go, I'll just commit my entire army now and just get as many points as I can by just sitting on objectives because I won't die.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I'm a second turn player.
I am too. I really like that, like what you're saying with the late game push for the your 12, their 4. I guess I've never thought about it like that. I really like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of always tried to play more late game focused.
Yeah.
I think it's just kind of my personal play style leans into that a little bit. So the fact that you have this big last turn, like 12ers, yeah, I like it. I like leaning into that.
Yeah, I guess I've never just vocalized or even really thought about it. I've just kind of done that. It is very hard to not overextend, though. Man, when you go, like, second, or it's the second turn, and you're like, I really could overextend right now and just knock off some primary.
Mm-hmm.
It's super tough.
I mean, even in our game yesterday, it was a 5 objective mission. I took Stranglehold. I was holding my 2 kind of backfield objectives towards the small table edge, and I went for the objective in the a third corner objective along the long table edge, and then I also went for the middle objective. Why?
Yeah.
Why? I could have just ignored the middle at that point and just held the 3 along the edge. Still gotten Stranglehold. Still gotten my points and everything, but I overstretched a bit just because I got a bit overzealous, didn't think about it, and just wanted to hold more.
Right. Yeah, and it's what he's saying is why? It's because I had a whole Sisters army right near that center that whatever he put on that center wasn't going to live anyway. So, why even bother,
Right.
And it's tough because you just want to get out there and hold everything that you can. Mm-hmm. And like you were saying earlier, it's just get that triangle, have your 3, and just hold that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's so hard to be patient sometimes.
It is.
It really is.
I think that's one of the hardest things to learn in 40K is just learn to not overextend. Learn, just because I can do something doesn't mean I should do it.
Right. Yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, even Double Dima's a little different. Yeah, you definitely want to get that turn 1 charge.
It fits into the playstyle.
But when I was playing Harlequins, they can right now get a turn 1 charge very easily.
Right.
But should you? Yes. The answer most of the time is no, because you're just giving that unit up.
Yep, and that's the same thing when I was playing Eldar Shining Spears with the double move with the Quicken. Mm-hmm. I can move 32 inches and still charge. I tell my opponent that, but do I do it all the time? Absolutely not, because why would I just throw away my Shining Spear unit that can do that? Why not just keep that threat going, make my opponent sweat a little bit more?
Oh, yeah, because the more threats you have on the table, too, your opponent has to play around those.
Yeah, they have to think about it, because once you've, one of the biggest things you can do is if you have a redeploy, like a Veil of Darkness for Necrons, where you pick up a unit and move it to you redeploy it that turn. One of the best things to do with that is to just keep it and not use it.
Yeah,
don't 100%. Use it. Don't use it until turn 4, maybe even turn 5. Because the longer you make your opponent wait, now they have to sit there and screen out that redeploy.
Oh, yeah.
And similar thing with double moves and fast moving units. They have to sit there and think about it the whole game until you use that resource.
Mm-hmm. That last RTT, the last person I played against was playing Necrons. Mm-hmm. And I don't think they used their redeploy until turn 4 or 5.
Yeah.
My favorite thing when I'm playing against Necrons, and they have that, is when they use it turn 1.
Yep.
Because they're going to pick something up, but then I pick that up, and I don't have to think about it for the rest of the game.
Yep.
If they wait until turn 4 or 5, that means my turns 1 through 3 or 1 through 4, I've been moving my units in such a way to zone out their units, and I've been kind of almost handicapping myself in order to make their deep strike worse.
Yes.
Or their redeploy worse. It's when you can force your opponent to play around a unit for the first over half of the game.
Yeah, whether it's redeploying or just fast moving units. Yeah. You have to expend resources just for the mission, just for the job of making sure that your opponent can't do it where they really want to do it. Mm-hmm. And I had that happen at the major we went to, the Renegade Major. Mm-hmm. I was playing my Grey Knights into Thousand Suns, and they had the Dark Matter Crystal, the redeploy. Burned it turn 1. Yep. They picked up a Dread Knight. I was totally fine with that because now everything in the backfield got to move up and not have... just breathe a sigh of relief because I didn't have to think about it the rest of the game. I knew that that big Terminator brick was where it was, and I didn't have to worry about it.
It's sometimes the threat of something is more effective than actually doing it.
Yes, and Harlequin Fusion Boat players know this all too well.
Yep. How many of you play Harlequins and have whiffed your fusion pistol rolls? Almost every time.
Yeah.
I hate fusion boats.
Every time.
I hate transports with fusion pistols. Yep. But the opponent knowing that you could move 20-something inches and then drop 5d6 damage shots on them is worrisome, and they plan around it.
I feel the same way with Sisters and Meltas. Mm-hmm. If my Meltas don't have rerolls, they're the same thing. It just feels like they don't do anything, except I have I'll have a 5 showing my miracle dice, and I go, I have a 5 here. You might want to be a little scared of this unit. But really, in my head, I go, I have to hit you, I have to wound you, and you have to make your 4-up invulnerable save. You're probably gonna make it, so probably won't do much.
Yeah.
But the threat of the Meltas is bigger.
Game changing.
It's game changing. So if you keep them in a rhino behind a wall and don't move those Meltas, and your opponent goes, man, if I move within 24 of that, they're gonna blast me.
Oh yeah.
They're gonna Danny DeVito just get
just
the blasting.
Start blasting. Oh yeah, yeah. Like it might not be as noticeable of a benefit to you, like on a turn by turn. Like if you redeploy something turn 1, pick up a threat, that feels really good. It seems like a big play. But just altering the way your opponent moves units for 3 or 4 turns of the game,
it's big.
Adds up. It's almost exponential.
Yeah, because every turn they do it, like we said, you have to expend resources to just having the job of screening. Whereas once you burn it, now I don't have to expend a unit that wants to be in combat, but now it has to screen out this bigger threat.
Yeah.
And, the same can kind of be said for, shooting. I learned when I was playing, a more shooting Ultramarines list, it's better to just shoot less but not take return fire than it is to expose all my Dreadnoughts, be able to just shoot a lot of the board, but then take a bunch of incoming return fire.
Yeah.
One of the most valuable things I learned was, let me just take a cheeky little angle. I'll shoot one unit completely dead, but I won't get shot at all on return fire. It was way more valuable than ever popping out, killing as much as I possibly maybe could have, but then just getting my Dreadnoughts destroyed.
Yeah.
In return fire.
I mean, I've even misplayed where I'll deploy my Hive Guard kind of way up front so that turn 1 they can deal a bunch of damage and pick something up. But then they're easier to shut down. They're easier to get into combat with and kill.
Yeah.
Whereas, had I deployed them much further back, you kind of told me this one too, had I deployed them much further back, they might not have done anything turn 1, but turns 2 through 5, they would have been doing things and keeping you off of the midfield objectives on my half.
Yeah, you might not be able to threaten the whole board, but you get the rest of the board.
Yeah, for more turns.
Right, yeah, for more turns. Anything that you have a resource for more turns is just better, typically.
Yeah, sometimes your resources are spread real thin. You want to get the most out of each unit in your army.
Right. And part of that is just not exposing yourself to threat, being a little patient, a little bit more patient. Don't expose it unless you have to.
Right.
Or your plan is to threat saturate, in which case, saturate away, baby. Put it all out there.
I kind of see people get Tyrannid syndrome, where when I'm playing Tyrannids, they get so focused on smashing bugs that they kind of forget to hold back or kind of play a little more cagey. They're like, oh, I'm killing so many bugs, let me just throw my army into this, and then I can kind of capitalize on that, and they feel like they're winning because they're killing stuff, but really I'm getting the points. Yeah,
I had a game like that in Tyranids, funny enough, for my sisters. And my sister's list is designed to die, but I'm going to get my points with it. So the whole game, he was like, it felt really back and forth for him. So it was fun, but at the end of the day, I scored way more points just because he was more focused on killing than the objective play. Yeah. And he was overextending to try and kill stuff, but was leaving objectives just ripe for the taking.
Yeah, and that's one of the big things that we've kind of talked about. It's a war game. You want to kill stuff. It feels like you're winning when you kill stuff, but it doesn't matter if you kill a single thing in the game. If you get more points than your opponent, you win.
Yep.
It's all about the points,
It's all about the points. And a lot of that, too, is secondary play. I know this is not a big topic for today, but I like to take secondaries where irregardless of what my opponent does, just whatever they do, I can still score my points. Stuff like Stranglehold or R&D now, Retrieve. Stuff where whatever my opponent's doing, I don't care, I'm still scoring points.
Yeah.
I could score points if my opponent didn't move a model. It's big.
Yeah.
Because then it kind of forces the game action to start picking up a little bit. And then you do get to start killing things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I always call that the Jasper special, where you just sitting there, not doing anything. It's like, well, I got the points to win this.
Yeah, you have to come to me now.
Right?
You come to me.
Oh, yeah, like the buddy of ours doing the, wait a minute, you're not doing anything.
Yeah. One of the first times I played him, I didn't move a model for the first 3 turns. I just sat there. I just sat there, and he just sat there, because his whole plan was for me to charge him and charge all his flamers. And I went, no, I'll just sit here and score points. Then he went, oh, wait, you're going to win. And I went, yep. I'll just sit here and win. That's fine by me.
If you don't have to expend the resources, don't.
Yeah, do not. Because you'll wish you didn't in the late game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even the Swarm Lord example, where in a double Dema list, I'm sending the Demas up, probably turns 1 and 2. And then from there, I really just try and keep Swarm Lord back and safe until turns 4, maybe even turn 5. Because at turns 4 and 5, people have started to use their resources. They're running a little thin. There's not much left. It's a lot harder to deal with the Swarm Lord then. So then he becomes almost like a third mini Dema that can launch out and do some serious damage.
I love those late game threats where it's like your opponent has expended all the resources to kill anything remotely like a Swarm Lord. And a Swarm Lord at full health late game just wrecks shop, let me tell you. Like, if you're able to keep, like, a big beat stick thing for late game, knowing your opponent probably won't be able to deal with it, it feels so good.
Oh, yeah. It's huge. It's really huge. Because, yeah, like I was saying, by turns 4 and 5, you're typically running very low on resources. Especially expendable resources.
Especially swarmy killing resources.
Right? Oh, yeah. I mean, by turn 4, I've tried to deal with most of your like Melta equivalents and that kind of thing that can be a threat to that, and then he's got a lot of free reign just to go out and do some stuff.
I like to do the same with the Silent King for Necrons. Just a big hulking model with a bunch of wounds with a 4-up invulnerable save. Use them turns 4 and 5. It's like it's really hard to kill.
Oh yeah,
like you can't really deal with that. So using those as like late game beat sticks, not only is it tactically smart, but it's also really fun.
Oh yeah,
it's also very fun.
It's kind of a 2-for-1.
Yeah, right. We are here to have fun after all.
Oh yeah. Like it's playing competitively is enjoyable, and it's fun to see like let's do the best I can and see what happens. But at the end of the day, like this is a game with toy soldiers. If you're not having fun and enjoying it, what are you doing? It's a hobby.
Yeah, you got to reevaluate.
Yeah. And then that could be just changing your play style or changing like how you interact with the game and the hobby, even focusing more on the hobbying like modeling and painting side.
Yeah, not even caring about who wins or loses. Just let me just paint a really great model.
Yeah.
Or even even just having different goals. Like sometimes, you play games like when I was playing my Eldar at that event, I knew I wasn't going to win against Custodes, so I went, let me just try and score as many points as I can. I know I'm not, I know I'm going to lose. It's fine.
Yeah, like give him a challenge.
Yeah, I'm going to I'm trying to make him sweat a little bit and just try and get as many points as I can. And that'll be the fun that I have. Maybe even just, I'm going to kill this character. Whatever I do, Trajan will die.
Like setting up mini games almost.
Yeah, like, you're going to lose. You can either try to score as many points as you possibly can, or you can just, let me just kill that knight. That's all I want to do is just kill him. Once he's dead, I'll be happy.
Yeah. That's really the golden rule of 40K besides be excellent to each other is we're here to have fun.
Rule of cool.
Rule of cool is the most important.
That is the most important. If you have a cool conversion, you better be using it.
Still, some of my favorite conversions are your Necron Vehicles converted to orcs.
I can't wait to get those painted one day.
Oh,
they're so cool.
Just the idea of, like, orcs taking this super advanced technology, like, aircraft, gutting the bastard and throwing a fucking gasoline engine in
gasoline
there.
Engine with duct tape.
Right? And a little bit of wah magic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Orcs are the best.
Orcs is the best.
Orcs be the best.
But yeah.
Yeah. With that, I think we're gonna wrap it up. Next week's gonna be pretty aggressive with the Eldar review.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be extensive.
Yeah, we're probably looking at least 2 parts. One for Craft Worlds, and then one for Harlequins and Yunari.
Yeah, and like you were saying, might even break that Craft World section in 2.
Might even be cut in 2 because that is a deep book. A lot has changed.
Mm-hmm.
Data sheets are universally changed for the better, I might add.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Stratagems are better. Craft worlds are better.
Oh,
it's good.
Harlequins,
Harlequins.
They lost some of their flavor. They didn't lose a lot. They got a lot of buffs. They're going to be so tricksy. Like, they kept their feel. You know what I mean? Like, they got tricks. They can still be blisteringly fast.
They feel like the fast combat blenders that they are, with a lot of tricks.
Yeah. Oh,
you know, they lost some strong stuff, but they gained some strong stuff. Mm-hmm. But they still have, like, the Harlequin feel. Like, you can't hit them. They're going to hit you. Cry about it.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be quite the deep dive.
It'll be a deep dive, so prepare your bridges. We're going in.
We're going in. Oh, yeah. I've been excited for this elf release.
Oh, so excited. We don't have the book quite yet. That's why we've been waiting on it. But we'll have it this weekend, and we will have the review for you next week.
Yeah. We want to wait till we have the book in hand. We can go as in-depth as we want. Like,
right.
It's going to be a deep dive.
Oh, it'll be deep.
It'll be deep. Yeah.
All right. With that, we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah. Take care.